I'm Jill Bullitt, and today I'm going to be talking about my work to accompany the June show here at Kiritane. I'm so delighted to be here. That's just wonderful. I want to thank Kiritane for having me. Sorry, I can't quite see it. Yasmin, Andy, Mustafa, and Sidar. And Sidar's mom, whose name I forget. I'm so sorry. But Mehtap. Anyway, thank you. And Victoria Holbrook, who's helped make this all happen. Huge thanks go to her, but really to all of you. This painting is called Spring Concert. I did it in 2005. It's oil on canvas, and it's about 60 inches by 60 inches, or 152 centimeters square. Some of these I didn't have time to look up the centimeters, so you will hear inches. But where I can, I think everybody would be more comfortable with centimeters. Is that right? Okay. One of the things that keeps painting alive is that there is a place like Kiritane showing paintings. I'm going to see if I can move this to my lap without wrecking anything. Yay, okay. Other life supports are your interest as an audience in looking at work. Really looking. At my opening, it was amazing, the intensity that people were looking at the work with. You don't see that at openings in the United States. They're just parties. And finally, painting is kept, but also what you take with it after you leave, after you've looked at it. And finally, painting is kept alive through the passion of those who believe that painting is a vital means of expression. This is pretty big. It's 35 by 46. Paint as a medium is grounded in the earth. Paint is essentially colored mud. The act of painting is also grounded in the body. Because as a practice, it moves through the eye and the hand, one might say that the work is shaped by its travel through the body. In fact, the surface of a painting holds great importance by offering itself through our sense of touch. This is not so easy to apprehend on Zoom, but we have a big show here, so. The result of these groundings in the earth and the body is an art that seems to locate us in our own humanness. This is 65 by 125 centimeters. To my mind, the best entry into looking at a painting is to pay attention to the role and beauty of the space in it. Yeah, there they are. There's the sense of touch right behind the zoom. In this talk, I will indicate what I aim for as an artist. I will reference elements in the language of painting that I consider to be essential, and include some discussion of what I think painting can offer as a discipline. I will be relying extensively on what the philosopher Merleau-Ponty and the wonderful abstract expressionist painter and teacher Nicolas Carone have said regarding how they think painting works, and who have said things that I think get at the central idea of where painting comes from. The picture plane is where the action of a painting takes place, as I'm sure most of you know. It is the flat surface an artist works on and the interior space behind it. The front plane can be as envisaged as a window that one could draw on the surface of, but also can be looked through to see a vista away from the viewer. This right line right here is the closest to the front plane. Plastic language refers to using the language of point, line, plane, and volume to create simultaneously a two-dimensional and a three-dimensional space. The picture plane must be experienced as a volume with a front and a back. Is that one in here too? Oops. Oh, I guess that's okay. This is 114 by 86 centimeters and is in there. But the front plane is nice and obvious here as well. Merleau-Ponty has said, in contrast to prose and traditional philosophy, the voices of painting are the voices of silence. Painting returns the viewer to a pre-linguistic silent realm, the source of silent and solitary experience, on which culture and the exchange of ideas have been built in order to take cognizance of it. The voices of painting are the voices of silence. Does anyone want to hear that over? Okay. It comes up later anyway, so. A painting is structured. The painter integrates the structure into the process emotionally. The image is a consequence of the rhythmic process. Look for rhythm in a painting. Carone said, I teach the language, the rest is automatism. This is where surrealism comes in. This is the only language which makes which makes art plastically real. A painter is part of nature. She lets nature play her. It's sort of cool to see it in here and see how much less you get from a painting by looking at it on a screen. And at the same time, we all love books of paintings or, seeing them online, but there's something, the sense of touch, in fact, I think painting is sort of apprehended through the stomach myself. This is actually an elegy for Nicolas Carone. It's from 2009. It's about 16 inches by 11 inches. A painting has got to have that image that makes it present and alive. That is the living thing about a painting. The whole organism, the creative process is a living thing. You don't put life in it. It's divine. That looks a bit faded, alas. This is from the Extinction series, and it's called Nature Trying to Remember How to Make a Bird, from this year. Since I'm talking about painting from the unconscious, all of a sudden birds started appearing in my work, and it was sometime after I'd read that in the United States, we'd lost 80 billion birds in the last 10 years. And they just started coming, and you can actually see, like, this right here is a bird head, but it was working the way it was, so I didn't do anything. But I just gave up and let them come, so that's what those are. Carone's advice to a painter. Your subconscious flows. Your subconscious mind must be in rhythm with your conscious mind. It's not easy. The greatest discipline for self-knowledge is to get your subconscious and your conscious dialogue working in rhythm and in continuity. The space in this really works pretty well. This is an early example of my working with and from the unconscious. It's 1994. It's called Skeptic's Notebook. And I just have to say, when I started this painting, I didn't expect to be painting horses on top of a man looking out at the viewer. It just sort of comes. There's a, what's the word? there's a formal process that this unconscious material goes through to turn it into a painting. But it's like you keep dipping back into this subconscious or possibly unconscious realm and then bringing it out. But as you can see, this is a very different period from what I'm doing now. Carone seems to use the terms subconscious and unconscious interchangeably. I don't know which layer of the unconscious my work is sourced from. Thus my use of the term unconscious. Another extinction series. There is a dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious. There is a structure in automatism.
Yes, what that means. Dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious and a structure. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of just what I was saying.
Automatic writing.
Yeah, the abstract expressionists and me were very influenced by surrealism because it felt like you got sort of access to a more genuine material than just painting out of your brain. And also why I'm talking about it moving through the body so much. So I guess that's all I have to say. But the automatism gives a kind of truth, I don't know, efficacy to the image that when you say, oh, I'm going to sit down and paint, extinction, you don't get. I mean, it's a real problem with didactic painting. And at the same time, I have to do all this other painting to be able to do anything that relates to the outside world. Well, that's not quite, that you will see that I don't believe that, but you also understand probably what I'm trying to say. The painter must affirm, as one philosopher has said, that vision is a mirror of concentration of the universe. In short, that the same thing is both out there in the world and here in the heart of vision. This is also Merleau-Ponty. I'm using another image here to say the same thing. This is by Frida Kahlo, but I kind of wanted to show the range of this internal and external world. The painter must affirm, as one philosopher has said, that vision is a mirror of concentration of the universe. In short, that the same thing is both out there in the world and here in the heart of vision. This is called Starvation. That's from 2012. It's oil on canvas. It's about 42 by 35 inches. And I really apologize for not having time to turn it into centimeters, but I didn't. A painting seeks to evoke in the viewer a response to a sensation that is giving them a change of being. I thought this one was just about me. Anyway, glad I don't feel that way all the time. Okay, this is references Ukraine. It's oil paint stick and oil pastel on paper. It's 7 by 9 inches or 22 by 26 centimeters. The process is in the imagination of the painter. Is this stuff really light? It's not as light as it looks like from where I am, right?
Yeah, it's light, yeah.
It's okay?
The colors change a little bit. This is part of our exhibition here. And
Yeah.
the colors, the hues are different.
Yeah.
So if you want to see it.
Here's what it looks like on my computer. It's a little more color. This is artist in her studio. This is from 2012. It's oil on paper mounted on canvas. It's about 30 by 40 inches. According to Merleau-Ponty, the classical definition of art is man added to nature. Referencing a Valery quote, he says, "The painter takes his body with him. Indeed, we cannot imagine a mind could paint. It's by lending his body to the world that the artist changes the world into paintings." This is called Pink Woman. It's oil on canvas. It's 40 inches by 40 inches from 2007. My mother was a fairly well-known poet in the United States and known for a fair amount of feminist poetry, as well as being a real intellectual and really good poet. She wrote a fairly early poem 80 years ago called Pro Femina. And I just wanted to give you a couple of lines from that poem. "We are custodians of the world's best kept secret, merely the private lives of one half of humanity. I believe not only private lives, but it includes our psyches. I think it's sort of the same thing as women. It's why I really think painting's important, because I finally, some women finally get to do it. You hate to have it leave. Anyway. This is from '93. It's egg tempera on board. It's 17 inches by 13 inches. And I think one of the things that's interesting about this is how attached this woman is to the land. She's almost mothered by it. And I don't know that you see paintings by men that do that. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it's why I think it's an interesting painting. And I don't know how faded it is, but actually this land shape has a head looking over to the right. Very Freudian image there, huh? Horse in the hair, right? This is from the 90s. It's 36 inches by 36 inches, and it's called No Water. In fact, I think there's sort of quasi-living things in that swampy area there. This is called In Memoriam. I did it the day I heard a very dear friend died, another artist. And it's from 2012. It's oil, and it's about 16 inches by 20. This figure here is actually in Rome. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. It's this face that's like that, and you put your hand in it, and if you're lying, it like bites your hand off or something. And somehow that became an image of death in this painting. But part of why I wanted to show it to you is because we're looking at negative space, the space between forms. And a sort of interesting thing happened in this one. The space between the two women is very alive in a way, and then the space between the woman in yellow on the right and this face actually becomes another figure, like a wolf. And again, I didn't even notice it at the time. It just came. This is Bad President. Again, you can see the difference in color. This was done in 2017. It's, in my mind, it's Trump. For the imaginary is much nearer to and much farther away from the actual. Nearer because it's in my body as a diagram of the life of the actual, with all its pulp and carnal obverse exposed to view for the first time. This is also Merleau-Ponty. This I don't really show, but I got pretty upset this week with the Supreme Court decision. This is another Trump. So it's called, I just renamed it because I did it in 2017. It never had a name before. So it's called Bad President Chooses the Supreme Court. The interesting thing is there's almost two Trumps in there, you know? This is the first of 3 chemotherapy drawings I did. It was done in 2003. I had colon cancer. And when I couldn't sleep, I would paint in the middle of the night. And finally, my doctor made me stop because I wasn't sleeping. I was getting too involved in the work. So it's a brief series, and I'll show 3 of them. This is called Lucy in the Sky. It's ink on paper, and it's 6 inches by 9 inches. And it kind of refers to the Beatles song with the diamonds. And in fact, when I was practicing yoga on chemotherapy, when I was upside down, I would see stars, which, again, is not something I consciously put in there. This is called Leave, Get Out, also 6 by 9. Merleau-Ponty said Cézanne wanted to portray the world, to change it completely into a spectacle, to make visible how the world touches us. Now, clearly this is pretty unrelated to Cézanne, but I love the quote, so there we go. I mean, the space in it isn't bad, but, you know, anyway. This is called Death Stick. The only reason I'm telling you what kind of cancer I had is there's all this colon imagery in it, you know, so might as well. This is an environmental drawing from a dream. There has been a colossal fire, maybe world scale, hurting the elephants. The big yellow shape on the left is a carnivorous plant, which is a meat-eating plant. The top right image is from Michelangelo's self-portrait of a bag of skin in his masterwork of painting called The Last Judgment in the Vatican. It's gouache and ink on paper. This is in the show. It's called The U.S. Abandons the Kurds. It's 7 inches by 10 inches from 2019. This is Warrior 2. It's pen and ink on paper from 1986. It's 18 inches by 14 inches. It refers to the US's involvement in El Salvador. And I actually sent it out as a Christmas card in 1986 and called it A Just Peace. This is called Premonition. I did a 9/11 series on in encaustic, which is hot wax on paper, in 2001, just in the weeks right after 9/11. It's 9 inches by 14, and they will all, I'm showing 3 or 4 of them, they'll all be that size and that date, 2001. I took my daughter Micaiah to New York from our home in North Carolina a couple of weeks after 9/11 to be with a place we loved. We walked over the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan from a little painting studio I was renting in Brooklyn. We immediately bought face masks when we got over the bridge, but it was too late. Micaiah already had pneumonia. Previously, I'd taken the Minister of Planning of Nicaragua up to the top of the World Trade Center, and as we looked out, I said, "Isn't it beautiful?" He said, "No, we're looking down on capitalism." I've since wondered what he thought later of having actually been at the top of one of the 2 buildings. World Trade Center, in case anybody missed it. This is called sound lag. You create a process which involves dimension, scale, consciousness, dream, and reality. But painting is also automatism. I just wanted you to notice the size of the buildings under the red form on the right. And you can see the hills and things, but scale is kind of a big issue in this one. It's interesting. Well, it's just, I think it's interesting when somehow language can evoke another experience like sound or like an explosion. This is called Crane's Eye View. 2 weeks later, when we crossed the bridge, everything was still covered with a grayish white powdery dust. But this is more, again, imagining the moment of impact, or the hours of impact. This is called Ghost Factor. To come back to where the work is now, I'm just going to show some paintings without comment. This is Untitled. It's oil stick and oil pastel on paper. It's 33 by 29 centimeters, and it's in the show. Done this year. To come back, okay, Merleau-Ponty said, in contrast to prose and traditional philosophy, the voices of painting are the voices of silence. Painting returns the viewer to a pre-linguistic, silent realm, the source of silent and solitary experience, on which culture and the exchange of ideas have been built in order to take cognizance of it. The voices of painting are the voices of silence. It's from 2017. It's about 30 by 22 inches. Some of these paintings I couldn't bring, although there's plenty here, because I had framed them up, and the paper really has to be put on a solid support. So, but I wanted you all to see a little bit of the rest of the series. This is 36 inches by 33 inches from 2018. It's gouache and acrylic on paper. I just like this one, so you're seeing it twice. And it's also very poorly lit in the hall, so it's nice to see it sort of flat. But it sort of looks like primordial nature or something. You know, it has that thing of looking like it's, you know, in the sea or something. My mother would hate to hear me say, or something. But I'm sure I'm also bothering Victoria.
Really?
Yeah. You take saying, I also like this one. It is the mountain itself, which from out there makes itself seen by the painter. It is the mountain that she interrogates with her gaze. There's one of my mentors, well, no, a big influence is a Northwest painter named Mark Tobey. And he used to say, you look at a mountain to see a painting, and you look at a painting to see a mountain. And I do think painting can bring the land into culture, I think. I think the arts are based in that, really. I think language is based in that, one way or another. This is in the other room. It's from 2019. It's 44 by 45 inches. Just a reminder about rhythm and space. And here we have it without writing on it, and the whole painting. Although I think the cropping job is incredible, but I thought it'd be nice to end with it. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing also your other work with us, and also it's very. You call this to keep painting alive, if I remember right, to this title, and of course it goes to the title of the show, which is the living thing about a painting, and all these images, all these paintings you show us, I can see the life in it, and you explained it so well, and now it gave me a lot to think about, so thank you. But I have a question. Also, when you say to keep painting alive, I think of keeping it alive in the sense that to keep or to continue painting. Painting as a medium, keeping the medium alive. And I want to ask you, because you do paintings, and I don't know if you do any other form or medium of art. Do you? That's one question. But
I've done printmaking and I did sculpture decades ago, but not lately, no.
yeah, but I want to ask you about the fact that you have stuck to this medium, to canvas, to paper, to oil, and pastel and ink, rather than using video, technology, perhaps photography, digital art, installations, and others. These days I'm trying to write an essay on Francis Bacon, basically based on his latest show and a new biography of his. And one of the things that's so striking about him is that he did stick to painting when his contemporaries like Andy Warhol in New York, I mean, they were all using the new media, the digital art and stuff. So why didn't you perhaps, try to use digital technology, didn't do video art, but really remain dedicated to this medium?
I think looking at paintings on here is the answer, really. I think that painting is a warm technology. It's photography is frozen. Videos move, but they also are virtual. I mean, this relates back to cave paintings and to all the marvelous history we have of painting throughout time. And it feels like artists have jumped off, so many of them, and decided to do something else. And I don't get it. I mean, maybe it's a kind of stupidity on my part, but I don't think anything is as rich as, for a visual medium, as painting. And as I say, I think it goes from stomach to stomach. One of the problems is you need to see it in person. People need to stand in front of paintings, and they get kind of rarefied away from the public by being in museums, and that's if you're lucky. The whole culture is moving pretty fast now. I think video art in a way is related to people being stuck on their phones and not having any attention span. If you go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, you don't even get 11 seconds in front of it. You don't see people taking 11 seconds in front of a painting. And we used to think that was appalling. Now it's just a background for selfies, and it's a great sort of party, But I think, well, when I did more political work before I had my daughter, I really felt like looking at painting and making painting made it possible to breathe. For me, it's a kind of eating. And I don't think most of society feels that way. And that's why one of the people who wrote an essay in this catalog told me he thought painting was dead. And we talked about it and we sort of, but Nicolas Carone said painting is practically dead. We're holding on by our fingernails. But it's what makes my friends who are artists and so very valuable to me, because we are keeping something really true and very grounded alive. But if nobody looks at it, how long is that going to, I mean, look, I'm showing in Istanbul, not in the US, right? I haven't shown in 9 years. And a lot of that is because I got a divorce and I hated my work for 8 years. And couldn't bear to go get a gallery while I was hating my work. And the gallery I had before was run by someone who was in her 80s and she retired. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons, but still, I'm having my first show in that many years here. And I actually think that we have to sort of look globally for really serious cultural environments where the simplicity of being human and the groundedness of being human is a value. And I saw a beautiful show at SALT, actually. It was a video from the air of just someone filming going over the ground, and I don't even know where. But I took stills of one picture after another because it was really warm and evocative for that medium. And, you know, I like photographers like Atget, you know, or a filmmaker like Buñuel. But I still think you're not, you know, I'm pointing at my work, but you're not getting the same kind of language by letting painting disappear from. And you look at how in love people are with other periods in art history, and why wouldn't painting still be able to interpret the moment? You know, I've said a number of times that the abstract expressionists had, you know, World War II, death camps, you know, 20 million Jews, the atom bomb, you know, plus Cubism, plus what Cézanne was doing in terms of saying you can't really express the world if you make it stagnant. And so they sort of cracked open the whole medium. But, you know, capitalism was right there, you know, turning these guy figures into heroes. And I think, to my mind, there are wonderful female painters, but some of the ones that get the most credit were caring for and feeding and supporting their husbands. And it's hard to do both, you know. I keep waiting for, you know, a wife who will do that for me. It hasn't happened yet.
Jill?
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd be willing, but it's very interesting to me to look at your work and to think about your approach. And by that I mean, if you would be willing to just take one of these and describe a little bit of where you started and how it moved across the plane. And I'm just really interested in that idea of how this thing came out.
Basically, let me get back to one of them. Hold on. That, okay. I actually did a series of these after my father died. And I went to Paris and rented a studio and just did a ton of paintings. But I considered them at the time to be just putting something on canvas that would later become figurative. And I kept on not being able to take it beyond this kind of state because it was done. And that's pretty much what you're looking at. I mean, it's why it's interesting to me that birds started appearing, you know, and, you know, these are actually done pretty quickly, and then I spend a week or so on a given painting, editing it, cropping it. It's why working on paper works so well for me, and trying to get it into a state where the positive and negative space, the way the so-called empty space works with the masses, where that becomes a statement. So that's sort of it, but pretty much all of them are just sticking stuff on there. That's the whole automatism part. And
how about this one behind you, for example? I've been looking at it while you're talking.
Yeah.
What was your first stroke or your first
I don't know. For one thing, it could have been 3 times the size.
Uh-huh.
And I really get quite physical. I mean, there's no way I could have done any of these paintings here because I would ruin the space. You know, I mean, you can line the room with plastic, you know, and my studio has a lot of plastic in it, which upsets me on some level. But you know, these 2 marks, the long ones, were pretty significant. And
it appears
but that
like
really can't be answered.
the yellow-brown one somehow came earlier. I mean, I've watched, in looking at your paintings, I've looked at these layers that have built up on their own. They've accrued in some kind of way, and I wondered if there was something about your feeling that leads to that happening while you're doing it.
My feeling with these is a kind of joy. It's a kind of harmony, like an orchestra. But I really can't tell you what comes first.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then a follow-up question. A lot of them have these sort of, I don't know if they're strokes or drips. How intentional are they, or are they allowed to express themselves, if you will?
I'm really just trying to make different kinds of marks.
Okay.
And have it become a concert. That's really it. I wouldn't say, well, nature trying to invent a bird or whatever it's called. Remember how to make a bird. The extinction ones are a little more controlled because bird shapes started coming in, and so I just didn't keep, you know, and they're smaller. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming. It's really cool to have you here. And Kiratane is just so amazing. This is just, I've been having such a blast. And I had a canker sore that took up half my mouth when I first got here. Then I got really bad food poisoning. And then I got COVID. And I'm still just, and then my daughter got COVID and she's like 26 months pregnant. She came here with her husband, 26 weeks, sorry. With her husband, and she had like 1 week she could be here until she couldn't travel anymore, and she got COVID here. And her husband, meanwhile, had it, and it was when the United States still wasn't letting you back if you tested positive. Well, we gave him 2 antigen tests, and they were both positive. But the blessed Buick Londres Hotel found somebody who does PCR tests that come out negative. So they were able to leave. And I went to the head of the hotel, or, you know, the guy at the desk, and I said, you know, we're really worried because, you know, Micaiah needs to go home, and her husband, you know, will stay here and be miserable, and, you know, she won't have anyone traveling with her. And he's like, no, they're always negative. And I'm like, yeah, right. The problem was it was the day of the opening, and Micaiah and I needed to know if we were sick. And we had taken antigen tests, and they were negative, but we wanted to make sure because, you know, super spreader, right? And we were both getting it, but we wore masks and nobody got it from us. So, but she never tested. She did not want to know. It was her second time being pregnant and having COVID. And I really got it. But anyway, it still made it just so cool to be here. But I did kind of lose a week of being in Turkey, so such is life.
We're glad you're healthy now. You know, negative and healthy.
Well, I'm glad not to have infected all of you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.